Joining us now to discuss this transformation, the right man on the left coast, James Hirsen of the Left Coast Report. James, we thank you for Skyping in today from Southern California. And 20 years ago, I can remember I was, as running for Congress, I was in Flagstaff, Arizona, preparing to hold a fundraiser at a supporter's home, and everybody, interested though they were in the congressional race, turned around to watch the television, and we all just sat there mesmerized. In retrospect, James, does that qualify as the birth of reality TV?
It certainly altered the media landscape, as you said. Definitely, I think it gave birth to reality TV. Even you look at the stars, there wouldn't be a show called Keeping Up with the Kardashians if it weren't for the OJ case, because Robert Kardashian, one of the attorneys, gained fame for that name during that case. But it altered more than just the pop culture. It altered the news culture. Because as you said, the whole country was transfixed with this news story to the point where it was covered by the 24/7 news outlets that existed at the time. And it gave birth to a whole new tabloid news concept, this crime news. We wouldn't today have Marcia Clark, Greta Van Susteren, and other, crime-oriented shows with celebrity crime, we could say. And even the celebrity obsession was kind of given impetus by the OJ case, the kind of infotainment we see today.
Right.
So there's by the way, the slow speed chase, reportedly 95 million people were watching a portion of that chase. And during that year, that was more than the total that watched the Super Bowl. So it was the biggest media event of its time. And of course, that kind of event can't help but alter the media landscape as the technology came into being that allowed us to, to break stories with multiple devices in thousands of different ways.
Well, as you're talking about breaking stories, all of the networks actually interrupted their current programming to cover this, and people were cheering it. Overpasses and Domino's Pizza required record sales because people weren't leaving their TV. They were glued. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And like you said, that led to the celebrity culture we have today. Now, can our current 24-hour news cycle be traced back to that Bronco chase?
Well, it was handled. I mean, we still see our 24-hour cable channels searching for a new OJ story. Recently we saw that with CNN, the coverage of the lost airliner, and we see them constantly searching because there really hasn't been, since OJ, a story quite as large, quite as looming, and as overpowering as that story was, with so many people transfixed. And then remember, it went on for such a long time. Sure. I mean, it started with the original report of the arrest, which interrupted the NBA finals, and it got some people very angry, but then went on through the entire trial. People were watching that trial as programming, as a reality show.
Absolutely. Every
single day.
And I wanted to mention too, and I don't know if our viewers know this, I found this very sobering, 74% of Americans could identify Kato Kaelin. Only 25% could identify Al Gore, who was the vice president at the time. That is disturbing.
Yeah, no, and it shows the trajectory of fame, because today I don't think people could identify either. But Kato Kaelin, of course, everybody's favorite house guest, gained fame as a whole bunch of characters became tremendously famous. Johnny Cochran, F. Lee Bailey, Mark Furman.
Marcia
when you
Clark,
think of the names, it just goes on and on. It's an endless list. But it just, the entire Kardashian family, Kim Kardashian, Khloe Kardashian, Kourtney Kardashian, ad infinitum, all came out of that OJ reality. And you could argue that a lot of other reality characters, Paris Hilton started out as a close friend of Kim Kardashian.
Well,
it's just, definitely changes, and not for the good.
Yeah, and,
right.
And before we
our media down.
Before we continue to plumb the depths of keeping up with the Kardashians, let's keep up with the Congress, and let's talk about the major news, the real life news this week. Eric Cantor, the House Majority Leader, loses in a stunning upset to grassroots activist David Brat. James, from your perspective, a little north of you, did Silicon Valley play a role in this?
Well, they did in the sense that David Bratt, 2 weeks prior to the election, ran an ad, and the ad showed Eric Cantor with his arm around Mark Zuckerberg, the billionaire Facebook founder. And Mark Zuckerberg, well known, had made very public appeals for immigration reform. And the ad talked about immigration reform and framed it as taking away American jobs. In Silicon Valley, much like the Wall Street Journal, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce looks at immigration reform as a business asset, if you will. Silicon Valley more looking for visa reform, and it really lends itself to a broader discussion about deficiencies in American education, where Silicon Valley has to look abroad to get engineers and people that can handle computer code.
And of course, they continue
that was a factor, but a new poll out from Time indicates that certainly we can't say it's the only factor. Some people want to pin immigration reform as the sole reason that this historic event took place. I think it's much more complex than that.
There are always a number of reasons. However, the whole amnesty question certainly served as the catalyst. James Hirsen, as always, you're our right man on the left coast. We thank you for your time and for Skyping in today. It's good to see you. And as we prepare,
JD Morgan.
Thank you. Take care, James. Your thoughts on the OJ Simpson trial 20 years after? Why don't you tweet us at Newsmax TV, #America's Forum.